Hello English learners. Welcome back to our English lessons presented by Miss Lichuti. Let me also take the moment to welcome all the new subscribers. Please stay tuned in our channel. Keep on liking the videos and sharing the link with others. And I hope that indeed the videos, overall the content of the channel is beneficial to you all. And we are still continuing with our short story series. We have done quite a number of them, including how to respond to contextual questions based on the short stories. And I'm also going to continue to encourage you, the class of 2025, to please read your set genres before you can go to the summary version or the analysis. It's important that you also have that, you establish that background insight of the short story, so that when we present lessons of this nature, it becomes quite easier for you to strengthen your understanding and to deepen your insight, if not your knowledge, of the particular literature. And in this case, we are speaking about our short stories. And today we are going to look into another interesting short story by James Joyce, titled Eveline. And as usual, I always say that for any written work, it's important to analyze the title, because from the title we get the indication of what is that can be expected in the context of the story. Now, the title says Eveline, and then Eveline is in the title, which is the name of the main character, our protagonist. The story is about her life, her relationship with her father and her siblings, and of course we are going to explore another relationship, which is a relationship between her and Frank, her lover. And then of course we are going to the story is going to focus on her suffering in the hands of an abusive father, and then she's going to be in a very serious predicament of adhering to her mother's wishes to be at home and to take care of the household, or to go to Argentina with a Frank who was a sailor. So the title is Eveline, which is the name of the main character in the short story. And I always encourage that it's important to learn something about the author, because it gives us also a better understanding, to understand what is that motivated this particular author to write the piece that he wrote here, Eveline. And the author, by the name of James Joyce, was born in Dublin, which is Ireland, in 1882. He studied French, German, Italian, and English language as well as literature. He graduated in 1902. He was interested in a broader European culture, and this led him to consider himself a European. And his masterpiece is Dubliners, which is a collection of short stories, and one of them is the one that we are analyzing today, which is Eveline. It is a collection of short stories completed in 1905 and published in 1914. The story Eveline comes from the Dubliners, which is the collection of the short story. He also wrote some novels like A Fine Girl's Wake, and then he died unfortunately in Switzerland in the year 1941. But what is also important when I did my own research regarding the author is that he depicted the realistic life of people in Ireland. So what we are going to read about is not only what affected the young girl Eveline, who was only 19, but also because he spent a greater portion of his time studying the life of people in the European, hence he regarded himself as a European himself, because he was affected by the life of people in the Irish. And then, of course, what he's going to depict here is what affected people in Europe around those areas. Remember, this is a story that was published in the 20th century. And then these are important facts that we also need to understand as a part of the framework that undergirds the short story Eveline. The genre is the naturalism that was established during the 20th century. What does that mean? Naturalism, actually, in literature, is a literary movement that developed in the late 19th to the 20th century, as an extension of realism. So it's a philosophical approach, right? And then it means that it portrays characters as being shaped by their environment, heredity, and social conditions, often with pessimistic view of human agency. Naturalism emphasizes the influence of scientific and forces on human lives. So what is important to note or to deduce from that construct, from this philosophy of naturalism, remember, when you think of these broader philosophical I would say constructs, they help to broaden and to deepen understanding, in as far as understanding what kind of subjects are rooted in this literature piece, what kind of philosophy helps to drive the story or builds the story, Eveline. So with that said, because this is a naturalism kind of an approach from the literature's perspective, it means that he is going to depict life of people in Dublin, right? Hence it says that it is characterized by the manner in which characters are shaped by their environment. So from that side, we need to know and note how Eveline's life is shaped by the environment in which she was born and lived in. That is what, in essence, or in a simplistic term, we mean by the term naturalism as an approach or a movement of literature established in the 19th and the 20th century. Right now, the focus is life as it is, as we have said, that it is deduced from this umbrella philosophy. Is that the focus is going to be life as it is, stresses the importance of environment and heredity in shaping destiny. And then the story is going to be narrated from the third-person narrator, told from Eveline's point of view, right? Now, a quick summary of the short story Eveline. We understood a background of the author, the title, that Eveline, the title means the name of the main character herself, is a young woman, Eveline, of about 19 years of age, and the story opens up with her sitting by the window, waiting to leave home, and she muses on the aspect of her life that are driving her away. Remember that we said that we are going to learn about how heredity and environment affected the character. So one of the things that she is marveling over, not necessarily marveling, but musing over, is the fact that what are these driving forces that are taking her away from home? And we know that it's because her mother is late and the father is abusive as well. So she needs to, and she feels the sense of agency to escape from that kind of a life. And then while in her nostril was the odor of a dusty curtain. Now this, I always say, you must pay close attention to diction and the manner in which the author uses language to portray vivid imagery, and such symbolism to say what is that. We need to understand what does sitting by the window, and when her nostrils was the odor of a dusty creton, what does that symbolize? And we'll get into that when we do contextual questions. Her mother has died, and as her older brother Ernest, her remaining brother Harry is on the road in the church decorating business. She fears that her father will beat her as he used to beat her brothers, and she has little loyalty for her sales job. So she is working as a salesperson, but then she has little loyalty to that job. It means that she does not entirely love her job. She has fallen for a sailor by the name of Frank, who promises to take her with him to Buenos Aires. Before leaving to meet Frank, she hears an organ grinder outside, which reminds her of a melody that played of an organ on the day her mother died, and the promise she made to her mother to look after the home. At the dock, where she and Frank are ready to embark on a ship together, Eveline becomes paralyzed. And it's quite interesting because she got paralyzed simply because she was reminiscing about the promise that she made to her mother. And then just when she was about to live with Frank, she just froze and became paralyzed. As Eveline reviews her decision to embark on a new life, She holds in her lap 2 letters, one to her father and one to her brother Harry. She begins to favor the sunnier memories of her old family life when her mother was alive and her brother was living at home, and notes that she did promise her mother to dedicate herself to maintaining the home. She reasons that her life at home, cleaning and cooking, is hard, but perhaps not the worst option. Her father is not always mean after all, and this is a direct contrast, because at the beginning we knew, not at the beginning, throughout the plot, the manner in which the father was presented was that as an abusive father. But now, when she was sitting at the dock, just when she was paralyzed by the thoughts and enveloped in a state of undecisiveness, she also marveled over the fact that not only was her father an abusive father, because now she presents another imagery of the father, that he has not always been a mean person, meaning that he has not always been abusive after all. And this is when she remembers the holidays and how funny her father could be. The sound of a street organ then reminds her of her mother's death, and her thoughts change course. She remembers her mother's uneventful sad life and passionately embraces her decision to escape the same fate by living with Frank. And now let us look into the plot, starting with the exposition to the rising action and of course to the climax and the denouement. The exposition is that Eveline Hill, who is a troubled 19-year-old, as we have said in our summary, teenager, looking at surroundings, her life, past experiences, realizes she will suffer like her mother did and under her father's abusive conduct. And this starts with an opening where she sits by the window in her home and looks out onto the street while fondly recalling her childhood when she played with other children in the field, now developed with new homes. Her thoughts turn to her sometimes abusive father with whom she lives, and to prospect of freeing herself from her hard life juggling jobs as a shop worker and a nanny to support herself and her father. Eveline faces a difficult dilemma, which says either to remain at home like a dutiful daughter or leave Dublin with her lover Frank, who is a sailor. He wants to marry him and live with him to Buenos Aires, and she has already agreed to live with him in secret. As Eveline recalls, Frank's courtship of her was pleasant until her father began to voice his disapproval and bicker with Frank. After that, the two lovers met again. Now, the rising action will that Eveline is going to meet this sailor, which is her lover by the name of Frank, who promises her a better life in Argentina, and then she's going to write 2 letters to her father and her brother explaining her situation. And the plan for her is to get married and to live happily ever after, and to leave, or rather to leave her home as a way of running away from the troubled household, which is constituted by her father's abuse. Right, and then the climax of the short story and the resolution. The climax is that now, remember that the gateway is for her to go to Argentina with Frank, but now at the port where they're supposed to sail, when she has to leave for Argentina, her mother's last days come back to haunt her. Ferry is there, Frank is there, Ferry blows its whistle, which means that it's a time to depart. Frank encourages Eveline to come. Her thoughts are too busy. Hence, in the summary, we said that she was similar to somebody who is paralyzed, meaning that she just stood there and froze because she was clouded with this debacle to say, how am I going to do this? Be at home by adhering to the promise that I made to my mother, to ensure that my home becomes a home because she was the one taking care of the household, or go with Frank for a better life. And then she cannot decide to board or to return home. And then the resolution is that Eveline Hill is stuck, paralyzed. As she feels this decision will drown her, she decides to stay. So the resolution is that upon realizing that she is battling with the decision or the dilemma, either to go with Frank or to be at home. And you must understand what are those reasons that forced or prompted her to be enticed to go with Frank, is that she wanted to escape the abuse of her father, right? And she was not even happy with her job as well, right? But now, at the end of the day, she's going to decide, as part of the denouement or resolution, she's going to do what? To stay. Right, and to delve a bit deeper into the analysis of the story is that the story of Eveline demonstrates the pitfalls of holding on to the past when facing the future. And then this is evident where the short story also portrays female in Dubliners, and it reflects the conflict pool where many women in the early 20th century in Dublin felt between a domestic life rooted in the past and the possibility of a new life by being married abroad. One moment, Eveline feels happy to live her hard life, yet at the next moment, she worries about fulfilling promises to her dead mother. She grabs the letter she writes she has written to her father and brother, revealing her inability to let go of those family relationships despite her father's cruelty and her brother's absence. She clings to the older and more pleasant memories and images of her childhood, as well as she portrays that it's not always that her father has always been abusive. So in essence, Eveline suspends herself between the call of home and the past and the call of the new experience and the future by going abroad to Argentina to be married. And let us look into themes and possible facts from the short story that supports the themes. We can have a theme of different forms of death. Death is both figurative and literal, discussed in the short story. People who are no more part of Eveline's life are described as though they are no more, pardon me. But this is not the case, and the majority of the people who are alive are no more in contact with her, right? For example, you can see the impact that her mother still has even in her death, because at the end of the day, she decided to stay at home simply because she was adhering to the promises that she made to her mother, right? She describes life before her mother's death better than what it is at present. And then she also describes those who left Dublin and never assert her emotional response to those happenings. From this, meaning can be inferred, which is that those people die when they leave Dublin. She fears that if she leaves Dublin, she will be considered dead. She fears that if she elopes and gets married, her marriage will be like death. She will lose her identity and she will be no more. So hence the theme of what? Different forms of what? Of death. Another evident theme, religion and keeping promises. One of the reasons for Eveline's failure to escape is her Catholic religion. Her Catholic belief is that to enforce in her that she should be able to make sacrifices and then promises and to live in guilt. She then sacrificed her own freedom and happiness in order to keep her promise, which binds her with her late mother, which is the promise to be at home and to take care of the household. And then the theme of nostalgia, meaning that reminiscing about your childhood experiences. Eveline's thoughts about what it means to be a Dubliner makes her think of liberating herself by leaving Dublin. She feels that if she leaves, she will have to start a new life and lose her identity. She's ready to sacrifice her life, which is a reality, but does not want to sacrifice her memories, which supports the theme of nostalgia. Women in society can be another possible theme, or it is a theme. Eveline is a typical 20th century Dublin woman who faces the majority of the problems that were usual then. In that society, the woman had inferior value to men. This led to the oppression of women by men. Women were controlled by men and had no power. Women had to be grateful that there were powerful men in their lives. Eveline needs a male figure in her life who can support her emotionally and physically, and she finds Frank. Unfortunately, her doubts prevents her from breaking the chains, and she is not able to challenge the system. Another theme is the theme of escapism. Eveline tries to escape from their life she has led, being suppressed and abused by her father. She believes that if she goes away, the society in Argentina will be different, and people will not judge her for her past actions, which is sex-related. The escape idea attracts her, but when the time to act, she cannot, unfortunately, do it. Through this theme, the author conveys the message that escape does not always yield positive results and may even worsen the situation. And we know that the story takes place in Dublin, Ireland, where the main character, Eveline, grows up. It is during the early 20th century that we touched in our opening or introductory segment. And now, after the discussions of the themes, we look into the characterization. Remember, for us to have character and characterization, we judge and evaluate characters based on how characters are reacting to events of the plot. She's a 19-year-old. She is emotionally abused by her father after the death of the mother. Her father and siblings do not show her love. She meets Frank, whom she loves and believes running away with him will bring about change in her situation. She works at Miss Guavan's store and also suffers emotional abuse from her. She feels that the change of scenery will make the abuse come to an end. She is indecisive at the end and she does not fulfill her desire to escape when she cannot board the ship and lets Frank to live with her. And then we've got Eveline's father, who is always drunk. She takes all of Eveline's salary on weekend and abuses her. It is implied in the story that he sexually abuses Eveline. He is not a caring father at all. He treats his girl child differently from how he treats his boys. And then we've got Frank, who is a very kind and open-hearted. He is a loving boyfriend. It's not supposed to be she. He took Eveline to theater. He has worked on a few ships. He is well-traveled. He can sing. He tries to take Eveline away from her father's abuse. He lives alone when Eveline changes her mind on the 11th hour. And then Eveline's mother, we learn about her through her death. She said that she suffers abuse in the hands of her husband, and then she teaches her children honesty and Catholic how to adhere to Catholic principles. And then, unfortunately, we learn about her already when she is dead. And then Miss Govan, she owns a shop where Eveline works. She is an employer for Eveline. Unfortunately, she also mistreats Eveline in front of people or customers. And then we've got Harry, who is Eveline's brother, and then he works in a church decorating business. And we've got Ernest, who is Eveline's brother, who also died. And then we've got the priest. He appears in a picture that is hanging on the wall in the Hills house. He has moved into Malbon. And the narrator's point of view, the story is narrated from the third person, which is an omniscient point of view. The narrator allows the reader to know both the internal development of the story in the mind of the protagonist by the name of Eveline and the external development in the real world. The action is told with a rhythmical remembrance of the past so as to let the reader decide if the protagonist is doing the right or the wrong thing. And then the style, the short story, Eveline was the advent between adolescence and maturity, written in 1914, which preceded the women's suffrage right to vote in Ireland by 4 years. The protagonist and the title character, Eveline, is largely affected by the feminist issues of that time period. And these feminist ideas are illustrated through Eveline's relationship with her family and boyfriend, as well as the societal expectation and her duties and obligations. And the short story is the tale of such an unfortunate individual, anxious, timid, scared, perhaps even terrified. All these describe Eveline. And remember, the author uses Eveline's story to expose or to document the life of women in Dublin during that period. So through Eveline, we get to know that indeed women were subjected to mistreatment, abuse, and they were subjected to, or limited rather, to household duties, nothing outside of that. And then power resonated more with men more than women at that time, as depicted in the life of Eveline. And then she is frightened, indecisive young woman poised between her past and her future. The story is clearly associated with details with metonymy and sandwich. And then the diction and figures of speech, that we are going to explore more of that when we analyze, when we do literary questions, contextual questions based on that. I'm going to start doing unpacking diction and figures of speech evident in the short story, and then thereafter we'll do contextual questions based on the short story Eveline. I hope this analysis once more will broaden your understanding and deepen your insight on the short story Eveline. On the next video, we are going to do contextual questions and diction of the short story Eveline. Thank you.